if you can instill in a younger artist that kind of mind, that growth mindset, then you get long-term happiness in the creative industry.
Yeah. Well, more than that, I mean, I think it's like just recognize, like, I think there's, again, like with that, my first book example, like I thought that it'd just be like good design, because it really, design was a sticking point, would just be so immediately apparent to everyone that it would just beat its own path.
Sure.
But you just can't make that assumption. And really, like, what I do now is like you can go to Barnes and Noble or wherever and find books that are like kind of like up the alley of what you're doing, and then go to the title page and go to the thanks and all that, and find those names and like, okay, these are the people who would be who I'd want to work with. You know, and again, you think it's a smaller world. And if you're doing good work, like, I guess it's like, if you're doing good work, don't expect that it will be like necessarily rewarded. It still needs to go in the right place. Yes. And honestly, if you're doing good work, there are certain camps will feel terribly threatened by it, and they won't want to do it. You know, they will like, oh my goodness, like this, we have to kibosh this because I need to keep up the illusion that, the fact that I had a landscape run on a postcard in a gas station in St. George is the greatest publication that I can do. And I've sold my boss and I've sold the administrators on that is a real publication. And then, so all of a sudden you come out with a book with Mariel and Mark by a major museum, and it's like, what? Like, are you even in the same field? And it just freaks them out.
That's interesting. When I hear you talk about your experience, it certainly can't, like, I can't separate those thoughts from my own students that I have right now. And I think, like, man, I hope that they're not seeing their current faculty as a limitation, you know? And I do, like, if we're talking about, like, what do I lose sleep over in the creative or the academic field? It's like, there's this responsibility that I feel when I'm talking with my students, in the same way that I feel with my clients. They're trusting me, right? They're trusting that I'm going to do my best work, and that I can help them achieve whatever that goal is. Of course, I mean, they're
18 and they're literally paying you to do that, right?
And so
everyone's paying you to help them.
Geez, like, I really want to be there for them in that way. And they, like you just pointed out, they're 18. They're young adults. They're going into independence on different levels. And I really want them to, they've made this choice to study illustration. I know that exact road, right? Like, I know the times are different now than it was for me going, but I'm still very much actively working in the field. And I know that it's not easy. And so I sure hope that,
when also students, you realize, and this is a nice thing about doing, you don't see other people as a threat, right? It's like, to me, it's like, when you have that mindset, like, I'm doing what I'm doing, I like what I'm doing, I found my niche. You see, like, oh, everyone can win. Like, literally every good illustrator in the world could come from BYU feasibly, because it's a big enough world for that. Right. And you're really you're competing against the whole world. Yeah, for sure. And you are competing too. And I still have definitely my moments of envy when I see other illustrators, succeed, or jealousy of projects or something like that. But there is something that jealousy is different than envy. Jealousy is actually a positive. No, jealousy, no distinction. Jealousy is like, oh, I want to be that person. Envy, there's a component of, I want to tear down that person. And so I think you mean jealousy. I mean, that's why envy is a deadly sin. Whereas jealousy can be a good thing. Jealousy can be like, oh, well, I'm going to work harder to be that person. Like, I guess you see a guy at the gym and you're like, oh, I want to lift weight like that. Can be that. But envy is like, I want to like give him a laxative. So body mass,
I'm glad you pointed out, because I don't wish anybody harm.
So I think you mean jealousy.
But I do like, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have got that client or that award or whatever. But at the same time, there is definitely something that comes with time that I want my students to learn as quickly as possible, that get comfortable being you, and things are a lot better. And we talked about it before, like the idea of relationship with this. The more that you can be comfortable in being yourself, and I'll admit, I say that after fighting my own inner battles and outer battles, and working at a university that is not known for fostering individuality. Like, I get that it's harder in some some areas than others.
Oh yeah.
So I don't mean to discount it or say like it just flippantly, like it's a long battle to find yourself.
Yeah.
But to pretend like you don't need to do it is not healthy either. Right?
No, it's not. No. And, yeah. But I don't know. It's just, anyway.
I don't know. That's
that's a big thing. Now we're getting like metaphysical. Can you know yourself?
Right.
How do you know yourself? But I do believe that like you need to, the one thing you can truly know is yourself.
Yeah.
And with art, and this applies particularly to filmmaking, is all mediums, is that you need to, you look at yourself and then you chop yourself up into different characters or different, you see different elements within you.
Yeah.
Like one time I was listening to The Great Gatsby. No, not The Great Gatsby. The Beautiful and the Damned by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Okay. And I was listening to as I worked in the darkroom. And I was like, okay, and I listened to it before, but I was like, this time I'm going to figure out which character is F. Scott Fitzgerald. Like which one is him?
Interesting.
And I listened to it and I was like, at the end, I was like, no, he was every single character.
Sure.
Like definitely.
Yeah.
Like even the female characters, even everything.
There's some bit of him in
Some bit of him, just like he like the flippant party girl. He just amplified himself in that, and so on. And you can see that again in Woody Allen movies. Like he is every character. And I've heard Stephen King, a lot of authors talk about this, but you really like, you'll find artists like, thankfully, like working with Mary Ellen Mark and like high level artists are super self-aware. Yeah. Like into the extreme. And they're self-aware. They even look at their bad side.
So what I'm thinking about with this, and maybe why I'm getting a little defensive or concerned about this guy you mentioned. Yeah. I think, so I'm a person of faith, right? And when we talk about a belief system, there's pretty like good debates that go on about the role of guilt and shame.
Yeah.
Right? One thing that I really have found myself more aware of, as a teacher, as a parent, within my own psyche, my own experience is, what do you do with, the varying degrees of shame and guilt and regret and all these kind of things. And something that I hope that a creative person can navigate in healthy ways and avoid when possible is a sense of shame about being creative, right? And so if we go into this mindset of like a profession that you've chosen, for instance, let's say you go in and you're the we'll tie it right back to the beginning. Did we have anybody that came along and said, maybe you shouldn't be an artist? And if you're carrying that with you, this sense of like, well, so-and-so's opinion was that I shouldn't do this, or it's a dumb idea, or it's not financially responsible. Yeah. It's useless. It's like,
I didn't carry it with me. My grandfather was super motivated by money and measured his self-worth by how much money he had. Okay, sure. And I just like, I don't want to live your life. That was it.
But also a sense of with like, with our next generation of artists coming in, or with ourselves, like to be able to say like, I was not wired to do calculus. That's my high school teachers. It was like, I mean, the numbers swam around the page for me. I don't know what's going on. Does that mean that I'm therefore like I should be ashamed of that?
No, of course.
And if I carry that, then what is that? Like that's always a limitation on the creativity, right? And if we're saying, art and illustration, for instance, I hope that as creatives of any kind, that we're able to not overstate our importance, but also not understate it, and have this rational acceptance of this is what I'm offering to the world. I'm going to face the realities of this is how I need to pay my rent or my bills or whatever, or care for the people around me. That's inescapable. But I'm not going to go into it with the resentment that's like, everybody should pay me more. And I'm also not going to carry in an excess amount of shame that like, I'm not even worthy of drawing a picture. Yeah. There's this balance to find. And I find that a lot of our commentary around the arts really skews with our younger generation, maybe carrying in either a hubris of everybody should pay me 10 times as much, or like, I really shouldn't be doing this. And then we carry that, we look at older generations where, meaning people like me, where maybe we haven't escaped that cycle yet. And if we can get into a mindset of a healthy rationale around what we're doing, I think maybe we become more effective that way.
Yeah.
We're able to collaborate better. We're able to communicate better. Ideas that are important to us, or the lens that we view them through, or the style that we choose to produce them in, becomes more effective because we are not going to extremes of thought about it, right? Like when I'm working with clients and I can say, okay, your goal for this is XYZ.
Yeah.
Great. Do you want to do more? Okay, what's the intention? And we can play with that. But let's set some expectations about what we're going to get out of this effort. Same way with a student. You say, like, if you do this an hour before class, your expectation should not be an A. Right? Yeah. If you did it for 2 weeks, you might be able to justify, like, well, I put a lot of effort into this, and we can have that conversation. But,